The studio lights of Lorraine glowed softly as the familiar theme music faded out. The audience applauded, warm and welcoming, just as they did every weekday morning. Lorraine Kelly sat comfortably in her chair, cue cards resting lightly in her hands, her trademark smile ready for the camera. Across from her sat Rachel Shenton, actress, writer, and disability rights advocate, calm, poised, and dressed in an elegant navy blazer. At least, she appeared calm. No one watching from home could have predicted that within the next 30 minutes, this pleasant morning show would spiral into one of the most talked about TV moments of the year. "Rachel, it's so lovely to have you here," Lorraine began warmly. "You've been incredibly busy, acting, writing, campaigning. How do you even find the time?" Rachel smiled politely. "You make time for what matters, Lorraine." There was a subtle emphasis on the last word, matters, that didn't go unnoticed. Lorraine nodded, moving smoothly into the planned discussion about Rachel's recent advocacy work. The conversation flowed easily at first. Rachel spoke passionately about accessibility, representation, and the importance of listening to marginalized voices. The audience murmured approvingly. But then Lorraine glanced down at her cards. "Now," she said carefully, "some critics have said that parts of the industry feel you've become a bit confrontational in recent interviews. Do you think that approach helps your cause?" The temperature in the studio shifted. Rachel's smile faded, not dramatically, but enough. She leaned slightly forward. "Confrontational," she repeated. "Or honest." Lorraine chuckled lightly, attempting to soften the moment. "Well, I suppose that depends on perspective." "Exactly," Rachel replied. "And whose perspective is usually centered on shows like this?" The audience fell silent. Lorraine straightened in her chair. "Rachel, I think that's a bit unfair. We've always supported." "Supported?" Rachel interrupted, her voice still controlled but sharper now. "Talking about people isn't the same as listening to them." A producer off camera shifted uneasily. Lorraine raised her eyebrows. "Are you suggesting this show doesn't listen?" "I'm suggesting," Rachel said slowly, "that daytime television often prefers palatable stories over uncomfortable truths." The tension was now undeniable. Lorraine smiled again, but this time it was tight. "Well, we are a daytime show. Our audience can handle more than you think," Rachel cut in. "They live real lives. They face discrimination, exclusion, and silence every day." A ripple of nervous murmurs passed through the studio audience. Lorraine glanced toward the camera, instinctively trying to steer things back on track. "I don't think anyone here is trying to silence you. But you are trying to soften what I'm saying," Rachel replied. "And that is a form of silencing." The words landed heavily. Lorraine inhaled. "Rachel, if you feel this platform isn't appropriate for your message, then why invite me?" Rachel asked. Gasps echoed from the audience. The producer's voice crackled faintly through Lorraine's earpiece. "Move on. Change subject." Lorraine nodded almost imperceptibly. "Let's talk about your upcoming project." "No," Rachel said firmly. "This is exactly the problem. The moment things get real, we move on." Lorraine's tone hardened for the first time. "Rachel, this is my show. And this is my life," Rachel shot back. "And the lives of millions you package into neat segments." The applause sign flashed briefly, then went dark. Lorraine placed her cards on the table. "I won't be spoken to like that." Rachel's eyes flashed, not with anger, but with something closer to disappointment. "And people like me are spoken over every day." There was a long, uncomfortable pause. Finally, Lorraine stood. "I think we'll take a break," she said coolly, turning toward the camera. "We'll be right back." But the cameras didn't cut immediately. Rachel rose too. "No," Lorraine said sharply, her mic still lit. "I think it's best if you leave." The studio froze. "Are you serious?" Rachel asked quietly. "Yes," Lorraine replied. "This conversation has crossed a line." Rachel looked around the room, at the audience, the crew, the bright lights that now felt harsh. "Then that line needed crossing," she said. She unclipped her microphone and placed it gently on the table. The cameras finally cut to commercials. Behind the scenes, chaos erupted. Producers argued in hushed but frantic voices. Social media exploded within seconds. #Rachel Shenton and #Lorraine Show both trending before the ad break even ended. Rachel walked down the corridor, heels echoing against the studio floor, her hands trembling just slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally saying what she believed needed to be said. Inside the control room, Lorraine stared at the monitor in stunned silence. She hadn't expected this. And she had no idea that what just happened was only the beginning. The moment the studio doors closed behind Rachel Shenton, the controlled chaos began. Inside the Lorraine control room, voices overlapped in a tense chorus. Producers replayed clips on their monitors, some with hands on their heads, others already typing frantic messages to ITV executives. The silence of the audience still echoed in everyone's ears, far louder than any argument. Lorraine Kelly remained seated on set long after the cameras stopped rolling. Her smile was gone now, replaced by a rigid expression she rarely allowed herself in public. A makeup assistant hovered nearby, unsure whether to approach. "Cut the feed," a senior producer snapped. "Now." But it was already too late. Within minutes, short clips, cropped, subtitled, stripped of context, flooded X, TikTok, and Instagram. One showed Rachel calmly saying, "Palatable stories over uncomfortable truths." Another ended with Lorraine's sharp words, "This is my show." The internet chose sides instantly. Behind closed doors, Rachel sat alone in a small green room at the far end of the building, her phone buzzing nonstop. She hadn't checked it yet. Instead, she stared at her reflection in the mirror, replaying the moment Lorraine asked her to leave. Had she gone too far? A knock came at the door. It was the same producer who had booked her. "Rachel," he said quietly, closing the door behind him. "I just want you to know, this wasn't how we planned it." She nodded. "I know. It never is." He hesitated. "PR will reach out. Probably today." "Of course they will," Rachel replied calmly. "They always do after someone tells the truth on live TV." He didn't argue. When he left, Rachel finally picked up her phone. Hundreds of messages. Thousands of notifications. Some were furious. She was rude. Disrespectful. Who does she think she is? But others hit deeper. "Thank you for saying what we feel. I'm deaf. I felt seen for the first time on TV. You were brave." Rachel exhaled slowly. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing, she didn't regret a single word. Lorraine's private breakdown. Across the building, Lorraine was in her dressing room, door locked, shoes kicked off, cue cards scattered on the floor. Her longtime assistant sat silently on the couch. "I didn't throw her out," Lorraine muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "I set a boundary." But doubt crept in. She replayed the exchange again and again in her head. Rachel's tone, firm but controlled. The audience's reaction. The moment when she herself had stood up. Had she reacted as a host, or as someone who felt challenged? Her phone rang. ITV executive. She answered. "Lorraine," the voice said carefully, "this is blowing up. I know. We're getting pressure from both sides." Lorraine closed her eyes. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying tomorrow's show needs addressing. Not avoiding." A long pause. "And if I refuse?" Lorraine asked. The executive sighed. "Then the story will write itself." The leaked clip. That evening, a new video surfaced, this time not from the broadcast. It was backstage footage. Grainy. Unpolished. Clearly not meant for the public. In it, Rachel could be seen standing calmly as a junior staff member apologized repeatedly. "I'm sorry," the staffer said. "This got out of hand." Rachel shook her head gently. It didn't. It finally went where it needed to. Then the camera panned, briefly, to Lorraine, offset, her voice raised. "She came for me," Lorraine said. "On my own program." Rachel turned toward her. "No," she replied quietly. "I came for the silence." The clip ended. The internet exploded again, but this time, the tide shifted. Hashtags changed. Hashtag she came for the silence. Hashtag listen don't label. Media commentators weighed in. Some defended Lorraine's right to control her show. Others argued that Rachel had exposed a deeper problem in daytime television, one that had been politely ignored for years. The morning after. The next day, Lorraine opened with no music. No smiles. Lorraine sat alone at the desk. "I want to talk about yesterday," she began. Her voice was steady, but her eyes revealed exhaustion. "What happened with Rachel Shenton was not planned, not scripted, and not easy," she said. "I felt challenged. And in that moment, I reacted." She paused. "I asked her to leave. And I've spent the last 24 hours asking myself why." The audience was silent. "Daytime television is meant to be comfortable," Lorraine continued. "But comfort can sometimes become a shield. And maybe, just maybe, we need to let it crack. She looked directly into the camera. Rachel, if you're watching, I hear you. It wasn't a full apology. But it wasn't a dismissal either. For some viewers, it was enough. For others, it wasn't. Rachel speaks, on her own terms. Rachel declined every major interview request that day. Instead, she posted a single video on her own channel. No makeup, no studio lights, just her. I didn't go on that show to fight, she said. I went to speak. And when speaking became uncomfortable, it became inconvenient. She leaned closer to the camera. This isn't about Lorraine Kelly. This is about who gets to be polite, and who gets labeled difficult for telling the truth. The video ended with one line. Discomfort is not disrespect. Within hours, it had millions of views. The industry reacts. Producers across networks held emergency meetings. Guest guidelines were quietly rewritten. Some shows doubled down on safe content. Others took a risk. Panels on accessibility, unfiltered conversations, disabled voices not as inspiration, but as authority. Rachel Shenton became a lightning rod. And Lorraine Kelly, she became something else too. A symbol of a system at a crossroads. One last message. A week later, Rachel received an envelope. Handwritten. Inside was a short note. Rachel, I didn't handle that moment well. But moments like that don't come without purpose. Perhaps the silence needed challenging. Rachel smiled softly. Some bridges don't burn, they crack. And through those cracks, something new begins to grow.